Well, hello and welcome to Knife Delights. Hey, in today's video we are going to be going over this iconic little pattern here called the boy's knife. I have often struggled with trying to come up with a good definition of boy's knives. It gets kind of convoluted. I recently watched a video by Tobias, Knife Chats with Tobias, and he went over and gave his thoughts on the boy's knife. One thing that finally kind of cleared things up in my head was we can describe a specific pattern called the boy's knife, such as these three that are on the table now, and then we can expand that to the general concept of what a boy's knife is. So watching his video really clarified things for me. So let's get into this and let's try to describe just what exactly is a boy's knife. Now in Tobias's video, he goes over the specific definition of a boy's knife when we're talking about what we see here on the table here today. I'll put a link to his video down in the description box. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, so please watch his video and you get the very much the specifics on these. But in general, the boy's knife was a very cheaply made knife, typically single-bladed, and it was made out of a couple pieces of stamped metal, and the type of metal changed over the years. Had a bail on it, and you could also purchase a little chain that had an attachment on there to hook over your button, so help you to keep you from losing this. Now I became fascinated with these because this boy's favorite knife here, right here, this is the first one I ever ran across in an antique store, and it was down in a lot of antique stores will have a bargain box or a bargain bin of old knives, and I went digging through it, and this whole thing was laying in the bottom of it. So sometimes you got to dig for these. But ever since I got this, I became very fascinated with it. And so this one here is called the Boy's Favorite, and it was made by A.W. Wadsworth and Son, and they were out of Austria and Germany, and this tang stamp, or that company, was in business from roughly 1905 to 1922. Now what's interesting is A.W. Wadsworth and Sons also had a connection with Adolf Castor, who bought out Camillus in the early 1900s. So that's why you're going to see a lot of these were made in Germany, and they were made as imports. Also laying here we have what's called the Boy's Pride, and this was made by Dixon Cutlery, again in Germany, and imported. You can see the tang stamp there. A lot of these have they're not in the best of shape, but my goodness, they're historical little knives here. So here's one that says Boy's Pride. And again, Dixon Cutlery. I don't know when this was made. Somewhere around the 1920s or so. So these are older ones here. And then here's a unique one here. This one was made by Merrimack Cutlery in Germany again. That's called the Boy's Favorite. What's interesting on this one, it's actually a two-bladed one, and it's got the sheep's foot blade. So Merrimack Cutlery. The second blade's difficult to get out here. So you had a sheep's foot and a pen blade on it. Really, really cool. Now another name for these would be a dime knife. And again, because they cost around 10 cents. And again, they were geared towards boys, and these specific patterns would have boys, stamped into it. There was all kinds of other ones. Some said dime knife because they also go by the name dime knife because they roughly cost a dime. So those are some of the older imported ones. And then I have some here by Imperial. Again, it's the same thing. It's just got the stamped handles there. Very inexpensively made. These are missing the bail on them. But here's one by Imperial, and that looks like LK, but that's actually I period K period Imperial Knife Company, USA. And I do not know the age on these. I'm thinking around the 20s or 30s. There's that one, and there's this one. Again, the same tang stamp. What's interesting in holding these, this one's flat, really flat. And this one is not as flat. How do I say that? It's more rounded over. This one seems to be a little flatter and thinner. Interesting, huh? And then I have this Imperial here. And according to this tang stamp, the Imperial USA, it has a USA vertically there. So that tang stamp was used between 1956 and 1988. So they did keep making them. Yeah, very nice blade. Tip broke off. Typical boy's knife, right? As a boy, we're always out there doing stuff we shouldn't be doing with our knives. Okay, so this is what I consider the specific pattern of a boy's knife. Okay, now we're going to expand out just a little bit because, again, the specific pattern of a boy's knife is like this, but there were other knives that kind of took that concept, and they were inexpensive, made knives that a boy could afford, or his father could afford to buy his son. And here's a little two-bladed knife here. And this is an A.W. Wadsworth & Sons from Germany also. And if you'll remember, we've got this one here. But instead of just the two pieces of stamped metal, we can see the pin there. It looks more like they're trying to have a bolster on there, and it was painted red. Nice and smooth. So it's just a two-bladed jackknife that was made to appeal to the young boy. And it was inexpensive. A dime knife, if you will. Dime knife or boy's knife. And then we've got one here. And this is called Guarantee Stahl DRP. And that stands for Deutsches Reichspatent. The guarantee Stahl is guarantee steel in English. So since it's Reichspatent, I'm thinking this is prior to 1940 or 1940s and prior. But I do not know for sure because it doesn't actually have a manufacturer on it. But you can see the same concept, very inexpensively made, and a nice little bail and a single blade here. Here's one more example, and I have no idea when this one was made. But again, same concept. Got a red cover here, and this was made in the Republic of Ireland. So even though you don't have the stamping of boy's knife or boy's favorite or anything on it, it still kind of fits that general concept of what a boy's knife is. Well, let's move along and discuss another concept that Tobias brought up. Calling a Barlo might be a boy's knife. Now, we had Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and a lot of literature and talked about boys with their Barlo, and it seemed to be kind of a favorite pattern with boys. And so here's an example. This is a Hammer brand Barlo, and it's kind of in the same concept. It's a shell-covered knife, kind of inexpensively made, and this is something that could possibly be afforded by a boy or a father buying for his boy. And it kind of goes along with, here's another Hammer brand, but it's not. It's not a shell cover. It's an actual pinned, so it's a little higher quality of a Barlo. So if Dad is carrying something like this, the son wants to emulate his dad, so here was a more inexpensive version that Dad could buy for his son, or his son could save his paper route money up and maybe purchase on his own. So there's another expansion of the general concept of a boy's knife, and that is the inexpensive Barlo. Now, Tobias kind of went over what you would consider novelty knives, like a knife such as this, but it has Hopalong Cassidy or Batman, or, well, I guess that's a little later on, but Hopalong Cassidy, Roy Rogers, things like that. Things that would attract a boy to want to buy it, because, you know, Hopalong Cassidy was a hero for a lot of boys during that era. I want to introduce something else, what I would call the tourist knife. And same general concept here, a very inexpensively made knife for the tourist industry. This is an Imperial, and it's from Florida, but you're going to find it in gift shops and that. That's something that would, you know, perhaps be sought after. Not only by boys, but by adults also. They want to, you know, how it is, you want to get a gift from the state you're visiting. So maybe if dad buys one, well, maybe the son gets one too. So I don't have any other that really appeal to a boy when it comes to a tourist knife. But I know that's kind of a thing, because I was with my little brother. We went to an antique store, and he bought one of the Richards from Sheffield, England, one of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police fixed blades. I actually did a video on refurbishing that knife for my little brother. But he bought that because when he was a teenager, went with mom and dad on vacation. I think they went to Niagara Falls or somewhere. Anyway, he bought one of those knives, fixed blades, and he'd lost it over the years, so it reminded him of his childhood, so he bought one out of the antique store to replace it. But yeah, so the RMCP knife by Richards is a good example. They also came out with the slip joint knife also. So another concept of a boy's knife might be the tourist knife. Now, in doing my research, I kind of came across this website. It's called the Langress Knife, and it comes from a city in eastern France. You can see it's a single-bladed knife, and it's got a sheep's foot blade to it. So this is why, you know, coming up with exact definitions of knives is hard, because if you read on that bottom picture, it says it can be considered as the French equivalent of the boy's knife, with its rather small size and sheep's foot style blade. It was traditionally given to the boys for their religious confirmation around 12 to 14 years old, which marked the end of childhood. So you can see there's another concept of a boy's knife, following a tradition of giving a particular knife to a boy to kind of celebrate the passage from childhood to adulthood. I always think it was important to study the history of knives, because you never know from knife history how it affects things today. Now, I did find an advertisement here on Blade HQ for a GEC Tituate boy's knife. So you can see the concept of the boy's knife is still around, but if you went to that website, if you come across that advertisement, you'd say, well, what is a boy's knife? Well, now you can kind of start to understand the origins of a boy's knife. The original concept to have a very inexpensive knife to have as a boy's first knife. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this video. Please check out the playlist here at the end of the video. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And until next time, have a very delightful day.